Greetings, weary travelers, and welcome to The Keep. My name is Lindsey the Keeper, and while most patrons have their own personal goals they want their subordinates to complete, mine just wants me to tell cringy TTRPG horror stories with the help of my assistants, Tao. I am back from an extensive hiatus, mostly dealing with real-life stuff that took me away from doing this on a weekly basis, especially when the computer I was using to put in that hard work decided to stop working. But after lots of work, friends who are good with tech, and the stressful tears and blood, I am back into action. Now, in order to make up the time that I spent away from you lovely travelers, I am going to read not one, not two, but 3 different stories and get back into the swing before going back to the longer stories or the multiple part stories. So, sit back, relax, and cuddle up to your favorite tendrils as we dive in on these stories. Enjoy! Na na na, danger zone. This first story was written by user Greedy Amphibian with the title, "New player couldn't handle that my character, a woman, was stronger than his." This is my first year in college, and I joined a D&D group through a friend who is also in the group. Currently, for the permanent campaign, the players are me, the only girl on the table, and 3 other guys plus the DM. Everyone is in my year except one senior with whom the DM plays basketball with. Another guy, Jack, joined our table a few weeks ago. I have been playing a strength fighter while the others have been playing characters with lower strength. Jack made a paladin. When the rest of us introduced our characters to him, he started to point out how weird it was that I, the smallest person, was playing a strength-based character. We just laughed about it, though he kept bringing the point up again and again and saying how now he had the strongest character. Eventually, my character and his had a tug-of-war and I won. He got really sore about it and started saying how D&D was not a skill-based game and that it didn't make sense why the others were letting me play a fighter. I told him to let it go, as did the others. He started arguing with everyone and it kept getting more and more heated until eventually he shouted at me that I could pretend to play whatever strength I wanted but he could beat me up. The senior got really pissed and told him to shut up and leave the table, which he did. End of story 1. I gotta say, I'm a bit amused about the situation. A man complains that a woman is stronger than him. I'm going to go on a limb and say that either he believes that women should be the sit there and be pretty type, or if they are player characters, that they should play the mage type class. More specifically, a cleric for some reason. Don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with women who wield magic. But if you want to play a physically strong woman, that is fine too. The point is, if you can't handle a woman, either an NPC or PC, who is stronger than you, magically or physically, then either you should be more open-minded or leave, like the guy did in the story. The next story was written by user Verithol with the title, "Why Communication is Important." I recently joined an online Pathfinder 2nd edition campaign, which I had to go through a random LFG board for it because within my friends group, I'm kind of the forever GM. GM had an application and interview process. I went through both of those. I knew he had a lot of applications and interviewed several of them. I'm chosen as one of the 2 new folks to bring into an established friend group starting a new campaign. We had a session 0 yesterday and it seems to go fine. Created a character concept I'm excited for, communicated with the group and the GM the base concept. Had a bit of RP justification I needed to get to the GM, but made it clear I'd have that and a couple of other details, name and gender mainly, worked out in the next couple of days. Then today, I get the most formal letter of player dismissal I've ever heard. Dear OP, want to inform you that after careful reconsideration, we're going to proceed with the game, but without you as a player. After Session 0, it is apparent that your vision for the game does not match the overall tone and feel of the campaign. I think I laid out the overall feel and guidelines for the campaign and specified what rules were being allowed. If that was not the case, then it is a failure on my part, and I will need to work on better communicating with my players. I am sorry this didn't work out. Hopefully, you can find another group and a GM who will be better accommodating than I was. Now I get it. Sometimes players don't work out. It happens. I've had to remove players even before the game starts. I've also left games because I realized I wasn't a good fit. But this came out of the blue. No warning, no communications, just an explanation that I have no idea where it came from. Like, I broke some unspoken rule or something. I'm honestly more irritated at the lack of clarity on why than I am at being removed from the game. End of the second story. Communication is such an important aspect, not just for the TTRPG, but in everyday situations. Without proper communication, you can easily misunderstand most situations. But in relations to the TTRPG, the reason it is so important is because whether you are the GM or the player in the campaign, if something comes up, you need to inform them what is going on, or if the player or DM is doing something that doesn't fit well in the group or setting, talking it out will help clear out the air. Now, this can't solve everything if that person doesn't want to change. Trust me, I know this personally. However, even though this letter was formally and politely as a DM can be, it kinda makes me wonder exactly what OP did that made the GM go, nope. The final story comes from user Athens_Al_743 with the title, The Players Who Believe That In-Game War Crimes Shouldn't Have In-Game Consequences. I've had more than my share of RPG horror stories, but now that 2 campaigns are wrapped up completely, one sort of died out, and I left a 4th because my playstyle was not compatible with the DM or some of the other players. I'll share this one. I ran a 4-year-long campaign as DM that recently wrapped up. We started with 10 players. The game didn't have a high player attrition rate per se, but we did have players drop out due to work schedules, family issues, and life in general. The game started with Curse of Strahd, and for the most part, everything went pretty well. After Strahd's defeat and the PCs leaving the Pocket Dimension, they got back to the Sword Coast, and I started tying in backstories and playing out character arcs with homebrew stuff. One player, who had some psychic powers, started invading minds for information despite the fact that other ways to get it existed. Notably, she did this to a CPTSD-afflicted cleric of Calamore who watched his best friends, lover, and siblings get torn apart by a massive horde of undead, and then forced alcohol down his throat when he reacted negatively to this. This character spent the rest of her arc being hunted down by paladins of Calamore for this. The other was a mage. When threatened by a pair of ancient white dragons for casting fire spells in their cave after making friendly contact and later getting trapped in the cave by an avalanche, his reaction was, "I'm going to hold an action to cast an 8th level fireball at their hatchlings." This was after having a discussion about how these 6 hatchlings were identical and there was some weirdness going on because twins/triplets/ etc. are when 2 eggs are hatched at once, not when one dragon is hatched out of a different eggs multiple times by the dragons themselves. Then, the psionic uses a skill to switch places with the threatened mage when he gets trapped, angering the dragons further. Needless to say, their faces started to appear on Wanted Dead t-shirts and posters with a massive award. The mage doubled down when the dragons tracked him down to a ship on the water and attacked. He teleported away, leaving the rest of the party to deal with the dragons. When they were eventually outclassed and overwhelmed, and the paladin walked away in anger, refusing to protect them from the consequences of their own actions, they agreed to a trial where they were punished by Calamore himself in a way that limited their magic and abilities. One left the game the next session, never to return. The other suffered a character death and decided he was done because he felt unfairly targeted by the dragons and others he offended. We finished out the game, but these incidents left a bad taste in my mouth and caused me to step away from being the DM for a while. End of story 3. There is a saying that I like to point out that most people forget. Actions have consequences. Even if you decided to do nothing, it's still an action, and sometimes that can also have consequences. However, I do believe that murder, hoboing, and war crimes in games should have the highest punishment because no one has time for any of that, especially if it's going against the party's agenda. Unless war crime is on the agenda, which is a different conversation at that point. Anyways, these are the first 3 stories to not only starting the new year, but also to getting back into the groove of things. I promise there will be more to come. I haven't been slacking on finding stories, just making the process of said videos. Plus, hopefully in the near future, I can show off some additional things to this channel that I have been wanting to do since making this channel, to be honest. It's honestly good to be back, and I hope you enjoyed this video and future videos. Thank you again. Now that the stories are finished, I'm going to depart for now. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Until then, may you find your worth in the waking world.